We have a phrase at Parker Clay, you win or you learn. And I really think all of these learnings really turn out to be something beautiful if we just keep taking the next step and seeing it where it's going to take us.
Hello and welcome to the One Girl Revolution podcast. This is the best place to find inspiring stories of women and girls across the country and to find ways that you can be the change in the world that you want to see, even through your purchases like you'll hear in today's episode. It's your girl Kate here, and I'm excited to share this truly inspiring story and episode with you. But before we get into it, please make sure that you're subscribed to the One Girl Revolution podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and everywhere you listen to podcasts. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and TikTok. We're at One Girl Revo, the number one girl, REVO, on all of those social platforms. And please share our content with your family, friends, and followers. I always say that the free and easy way to support any person or organization is to just share their content, follow them and share them. And that helps us grow this platform. So please continue to follow all of the work that we're doing and please share it. You can find more information about One Girl Revolution, find all of our podcast episodes, donate to our nonprofit organization to help us continue our work, watch our Emmy-nominated documentaries, and so much more on our website at onegirlrevolution.com. That's the number one, girlrevolution.com. On this week's episode of the One Girl Revolution podcast, I welcome Brittany Bentley, co-founder of Parker Clay. Parker Clay is a B Corp for-profit company that makes premium leather and hand-woven goods in Ethiopia and empowers women and transforms communities through commerce and art. A B Corporation, if you don't know, is a for-profit business that uses the power of commerce to solve social and environmental problems. Parker Clay hires at-risk women, pays living wages and benefits, and provides skills training, career advancement, and financial literacy opportunities to all of their employees. Since the formation of Parker Clay, they have partnered with a nonprofit organization in Ethiopia with a goal of restoring independence to women who have been exploited through prostitution, ultimately fighting to end prostitution in Ethiopia. They have successfully graduated over 1,000 women through their program, and that number just continues to grow. And they have an over 90% success rate. So over 90% of their graduates have been able to remain free from prostitution. Brittany and her husband have an incredible story of how they first went to Ethiopia and why they spent time there. Spoiler alert, adoption is a part of their story. They ended up moving there for a time, and they tell the story, or Brittany tells the story of how they founded Parker Clay to empower and help women in need. What I love so much about their story, and I say this in this episode, is that they didn't just start something to quote unquote save a community of people, like you often hear. This savior complex that people often have, especially from Americans. We think that we can save everyone when we often can't even save ourselves, to be honest. But Brittany and her husband, Ian, and their family embedded themselves into the community in Ethiopia and got to hear and experience the needs and wants of women in Ethiopia firsthand. There's so much that I could talk about here, but I think it's important to note that there is over 150,000 women in prostitution in the capital in Ethiopia right now. 26% of women in the capital are unemployed. And there are 4.6 million children that are orphaned in Ethiopia right now. There are very few opportunities for education, professional skill development, or vocational training. So many young women are forced into coercive, exploitative means of providing for themselves and their families. Girls as young as 8 years old believe that they are chasing opportunity only to end up trafficked or enslaved. It's absolutely heartbreaking. But Parker Clay is a beacon of light. Parker Clay is helping women and girls escape from that life and providing a new life for them, truly empowering women and girls to be who they were created to be and to live a full and fulfilling and empowered life. Brittany, her husband, her family, and Parker Clay are transforming the world. And I am so excited to share this inspiring story and this incredible company with you today. Here's my conversation with Brittany. Brittany, welcome to the One Girl Revolution podcast.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. Excited to talk with you today.
I am so excited to have you on to hear all about Parker Clay and all the great work that you do. But before we get into that, I would love to rewind. I'm always interested in the personal story, the story of evolution of the women and girls that we have on this podcast. So I'd love to hear from you just a little bit about who you are, where you're from, and just a little bit about your life.
Yeah, I mean, there's quite a bit of a backstory that, twists and turns for sure. I was born and raised in California, and my husband and I actually met in high school here in Santa Barbara. So, yeah, it's been about almost 20 years now that we've known each other. And I've always had a passion for adoption. And that's really where our journey started. Ever since junior high, I've wanted to adopt. And when we met, I made that clear. I really want to adopt one day. And, we kind of went through the normal steps of life. We graduated high school. We went off to college. I am an art major, graphic designer. He majored in business. We just jump-started our lives into just the typical grind of working a ton and wanting to own a house and have a little family. We had two boys, and Parker and Clay. Those were our first boys. Clayton, he always wants me to remind that, is Clayton, even though the company is now Parker Clay. And we were just satisfied with the two kids. After that, I'm like, wait a minute, after all the pregnancy brain fog wears off a little bit, I'm like, I really wanted to adopt. And I became super passionate about it again. And really seeing the needs of all the children around the world, but especially I was really seeing what was going on in Uganda at the time with just the child soldiers. And I was really passionate about wanting to create opportunities where the children were safe, especially in other countries as well. I had friends growing up that were adopted from other countries, and that just became something I was very passionate about at the time. It took a little bit of adjustment to get my husband Ian on board. We were just very, in the mode of becoming successful in our careers, and adopting is very expensive, and it changes your life really. And it took about a year of discussing it together before we, moved forward and signed the papers and began the process. And we were first looking at what options we had at the time. We were 25 years old, and there's not very many options at that age to adopt. And so we found Ethiopia as the country that was best fitted for us at the time. And we began the process. And it really led us to adopt this little girl. Her name is Selah. And it took us on a trip over there for the first just court appointments that really changed our lives significantly. We went to her hometown, which is very unusual to do, to travel outside the city. And we met the people in her lives that were significant and really provided for her in her, first few months of life. And we saw that they gave up everything, things they did not have, to provide for her and take care of her. And in that moment, we're like, what are we doing with our lives back home? We really want to do something that provides opportunity, provides jobs, so moms don't have to give up their children. That, we can provide, if they want to keep their children, they have the jobs, they have the resources they need. And I know that's a cause like around the world, but now with our daughter being from Ethiopia, that place had a very significant spot in our heart. So we came back to Santa Barbara and really were adjusting our lives completely, looking at other nonprofits we can be a part of, to making other trips to Ethiopia to see how we can be a part of creating provisions and jobs for these women. Well, after several trips and bringing our daughter home, we got the opportunity to work with a nonprofit, Alilta Women at Risk, that was rehabilitating women out of prostitution, but then never had a significant job training job training side of their business to really create new jobs for these women that have been through trafficking, prostitution, just vulnerable situations. And they needed a sustainable job to really take them out of that, give them the education to move forward. And that is initially what led us to Ethiopia. So that's like a fast backstory of what led us there.
Yeah, it's amazing how little things in our lives, and sometimes we miss it, but one moment in your life, and even you thinking about adoption and then ending up in Ethiopia, and how that experience can change your life. And I know that we all have these experiences, but sometimes we miss them because we're not paying attention. Like, you easily could have gone to Ethiopia, kept your eye on the quote unquote eye on the prize, and been like, all right, we're getting our daughter. I'm not going to look at the things that are going on. But if you allow yourself to be surprised, if you allow your eyes to be open to what's going on in our own communities, in Ethiopia, when you go over there, and how your life can change and take on a new path, which I know it did. So what was the moment was there a suddenly moment where you were like, all right, this is what we need to do. We're going to start something, Parker Clay, this is what it's going to be. Was there a suddenly moment or a spark moment, or was it a mix of different moments and things in your life?
Yeah, it was definitely a mix of moments in the first place. Like, there was never a moment I remember where we said we're moving to Ethiopia. It literally just like creeped upon us and we were moving. And then while we were there, we bought one-way tickets for our family, now of 5, to go to Ethiopia, which was a huge step. We didn't have a house. We didn't speak the language. We only had a couple connections, but we had a good place that was needing our assistance, with our background in business and design. They were doing weaving at the time. And we didn't find a good spot where we're like, okay, we need to start another business. We were super happy and content doing that business. But we started seeing that the women couldn't carry on from that position doing weaving into future jobs. And we really wanted to help create a sustainable job where these women could do weaving at any other business. In Ethiopia, weaving is a men's industry. And so you actually, as a woman, to come into that men's industry, you probably have to be really, fast at weaving and have more skill sets, or maybe it's just an uncomfortable position for them to go into that industry. So we were always looking for other options, whether that's jewelry making or another craft. We never intended to start our own business, although that's always been a passion of my husband, Ian, the co-founder as well. He's always been interested in, being an entrepreneur. And so I was just really wanting to spend time with the women. I was helping with the design of the scarves, the weaving, and really just sitting with them and getting to know them. And so when we started Parker Clay, Ian and I were just out on the weekend, and we saw a leather bag. And at that time, I hadn't really seen anything that caught my eye, because in Ethiopia, we learned later, the good leather gets sent out of the country. And so a lot of the leather in country is slightly lower quality, or it's cut up a lot and stitched, so it's a more affordable price. And so I haven't seen any leather bags that caught my eye until I saw this one, which is a larger piece of leather. And I was like, where is this from? I opened the bag, and on the back, it said made in Ethiopia, embroidered on the tag. And on the backside was the guy's phone number that made it. So that was amazing, because that's incredibly rare. We called him up, and at the time it was just for personal, uses. Ian wanted a briefcase. I want another backpack. I want a wallet. Let's make some fun things. And Ian ended up going on a tour of the tannery with this guy, and they were filling a truck with the most beautiful leather hides. And Ian said, where are you sending this? And he said, to Italy, to other places in Europe. And it's, some of the best quality leather in the world. We're like, wow, we did not know. First of all, this is like one of the largest industries in Ethiopia, but why is all the most beautiful leather getting sent out of the country? We were almost considering ourselves ambassadors of Ethiopia. At the time, we really want to make our daughter proud of things that come out of Ethiopia, wanting to really highlight the beautiful things in the country, not just their sad stories, not just the hard life that these women have been through, but really their successes, where they've come from, where they've grown from that one, hard place in their life. And now they're on a new trajectory of growth and being a part of a community. We really wanted to highlight that. So that's when the light bulb went off. And it was like, we could create beautiful leather bags that aren't just like a charity that you give to and you get a little trinket, to symbolize your gift. Or it was really like a high quality leather bag that was able to provide jobs for these women, sustainable jobs that could lift them up out of what they've been through. Many have not had a sustainable job that they can count on. So this would provide that, and creating bags that were beautiful enough that people would want them and continue to buy them. So there just wasn't ups and downs in their jobs, based off of orders people would make, but it would really be consistent for them.
It's so important. And I love your story for so many reasons, but one of them is that you just embedded yourself in the community. So often we hear these stories of this almost savior complex from people coming from America, like, oh, let me come and save you. And it's like, no, you really spent time with these women and with their families and got to know them and what are the struggles. And I think that that's such an important thing in our world, is not to just be like, oh, well, I have money, or I have this, or I have that. I have these resources that I can go and save this person. No, to actually listen to their stories and get to know them as a human being and what are their struggles. And also on the flip side, you have these women that so often, and we all can have these moments where we feel almost stuck, where it's like, okay, I can't get out of trafficking situations, or I can't get out of a job that I don't like. We all can relate to that because you feel stuck. And so you just created this space for women to be healed through beauty. How therapeutic I'm sure that it is for them with the weaving and with the leather goods and creating these beautiful works of art.
Yeah, for sure. And, we really have taken on the job training aspect of the nonprofit. So we are a for-profit company, but we have taken on the last 6 months of the nonprofit's job training and moved it into our factory. So I love that we have a full Ethiopian leadership team of amazing qualified leaders. 80% of our team is women, both here in the US and Ethiopia, on their leadership team and on our production team as well. And that makes a big difference because of the way that women invest back into their community. Our goal is to uplift women, but really through that to uplift the community, to provide for the children. And I'm really proud of the leadership team there and where they see the needs and how they communicate with our team. And they are able to vocalize to our team here in the US even what is needed. So we've been able to create a financial literacy program. We work with a bank that's completely run by women in Ethiopia that's able to come to our factory and teach about savings programs and create, have the opportunity to get loans, which is, very rare. We're able to provide transportation. We're able to protect against the fluctuation in the dollar versus the birr. And many other things. We have our own cafe where we're able to provide very subsidized lunches that are delicious. I eat them every time I come there. And other things that really meet the needs of the people in our factory.
If you like what you're hearing on this episode of the One Girl Revolution podcast, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, YouTube, or wherever you're listening right now. We have new inspiring episodes coming out every week, and you don't want to miss a single one. Subscribe to the One Girl Revolution podcast today. I know that every person is different. Every person's story is different, but when you first get connected with somebody, or maybe how do you get connected to the people that end up working with Parker Clay? And then can you just talk about, I know you kind of went through some of the programs that you have, but what is that experience like for them? Do they get connected to like a caseworker who walks with them and makes sure that they're getting the resources that they need? And then they are in your programming for a year or two and then transition out, or is it a long-term thing? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, great question. We have two separate things, really. We do hire from the community and we hire also from the nonprofit. And we don't share with the rest of the team where those people come from. So we don't say, hey, these women came from prostitution or trafficking. We bring them all in at the same time. And we do an internship first for a month. It's a paid internship. It's to make sure, especially the women coming from the nonprofit, understand what it takes, because we are a business. And one of our challenges is not understanding that you have to call in and say when you're not going to be coming in for work. And so that's really teaching them the importance of, hey, your coworker is relying on you for the day. And not only that, our team is relying on you to hit these goals, to provide enough finished bags at the end of the day so that we can continue to hire the next woman that, needs a position as well. So creating that atmosphere of really community and being able to hey, I missed you today. You weren't at work, and just, treating them as a valued employee. And so, yeah, the internship really helps with that. And during that second 6 months of job training, the leadership team also has counselors from the nonprofit visiting often. And so they're continuing to work with those employees. We have a Center of Excellence program, we call it, which it provides leather training at any level. So not only the first 6 months or first year you're at Parker Clay, but throughout your entire time, you can always sign up for this skills training and you get an actual certificate from the Leather Institute in Ethiopia. So you can take that on to any other career. So my family, we're going to go to Ethiopia this summer. And I was kind of thinking of signing up for this class as well and doing some, learning how to sew a little bit and being a part of their program with them, walk alongside it. And it's really cool how you can start at Stitcher level 1 and move up. And we've seen that in a lot of our employees really start out at let me give you one example. When we lived in Ethiopia, we had a house cleaner there, which is very normal. You have someone that almost is a live-in. And she was our favorite person ever. Her name's Melka, and we absolutely love her. But when we left Ethiopia, and that's a whole nother story, great story though, we had to say goodbye to her. We helped her get a job at a friend's orphanage, actually. And then after a couple of years, we heard that she lost that job because they changed their employment, and she didn't have work for another year or so. Well, when we opened our larger factory, we were able to hire her on as a cleaner at our factory. And after a little bit of time there, she wanted to learn more. And so she's taken several Center of Excellence classes and is now one of our stitchers. And so it's really cool to see her growth. And, she is just the most warm, happy person. Everybody just loves her. And so it's great to see that she is putting herself first as well and say, hey, I am, I'm not too old to learn a new career or try something different. And she's really proud of where she's gone.
It's the saying, you don't have to die to have many lives. And a lot of things like what you're doing is it can be whatever people make it out to be, right? I'm sure that you've had people that have gone through your programmings, have worked with Parker Clay for a while, and now they're able to just be a stay-at-home mom and stitch people's pants. There's so much potential for what people can do. And you're really creating you're opening the world for all the people that work for you, which I love so much. So I have to hear the story about why you left Ethiopia. What was it that led you guys to leaving Ethiopia? How long were you there?
We were there for 3 years, and we had no intention to leave at all. We did not want to. There was a series of events that were a little wild. So basically, we landed in Ethiopia in the beginning, and 6 months later, we ended up adopting a 10-year-old. And so that made us a family of 6. And she did not speak English at the time. She had not had any education, so that was quite a bit of a challenge, but we really felt like we were supposed to adopt her at the time. So we really saw Ethiopia through our daughter's eyes as well, wanting them to be super proud of their country and what they were creating, not wanting them to feel like they were from just like a poor country that didn't have resources, but we wanted to show them the beauty of Ethiopia. So that really drove a lot of Parker Clay as well. Well, towards the end of the 3 years, I also became pregnant. So that we have 5 kids now. I did have our daughter back in the States, so that was good. But so our first daughter that we adopted, Selah, we actually found out that she had a benign brain tumor, and it was causing seizures. With bringing her back to the States after adoption and bringing her back to Ethiopia and all the changes, we didn't know if that was it or if it was something else, because we didn't have, great medical care at the time. We were just trying to figure out what was going on. So we flew back to LA, get her diagnosed at UCLA actually, and found out that it was the brain tumor. She had seizures, and she was having about 7 a day that could not be controlled by any medication. And she was having rage fits. It's called hypothalamic hamartoma. And it was devastating, because at the time, we could not even focus much on our other children. She was really taking everyone's time to really, deal with her needs. And so we had a lot of support from our community back home and from our community in Ethiopia, but it was really time to go back to the States and get her first brain surgery. So it was quite sudden. We, again, had a very similar situation where we came back to Santa Barbara with no housing and no job, because Parker Clay was not paying at the time. So my husband actually jumped back into real estate with his friend. That was really helpful. And I was doing graphic design pregnant with 5, actually had 4 children at the time pregnant, and also getting our daughter brain surgery. So that was incredibly wild and heartbreaking. Also, almost like when you get to a point in your life where you're taking on so much, it somehow becomes manageable again, because you just block it all out and just get it done and function. Well, at least I did at the time. So we got her first brain surgery in Texas, and hope that would help, but unfortunately it did not as well. So she's had 2 since brain surgery, so we're up to 3 now, and she's doing pretty well. She functions very well with her epilepsy, but it is like an ongoing challenge, and it's always like the sad mixed with the appreciation of understanding this community that we're now a part of, and understanding the special needs, friendships that I have. And I definitely appreciate that. So I'm thankful for being a part of that. But that did bring us back to Ethiopia and really kind of hit into the next phase of Parker Clay, because we weren't people that were just going to drop all the work we just did in Ethiopia. It was very much part of our lives. We saw people come and go from Ethiopia quickly within a year or 2 from the States. And we didn't want to be people that invested in Ethiopians' lives and then be like, sorry, we have to go. That's a common thing. So we made about 4 trips the first year. I think Ian made about 6 trips the first year back to Ethiopia after coming home. And we continued the business there. It actually grew. I was selling bags out of my van around town here. And that's shipping products with a baby in a little carrier over at the post office, and really starting that next step of Parker Clay. And I don't think we could have done it fully from living there. We really had to be back here, and that really helped our business grow. It's been an incredible challenge, working in a country that is so far away, and really wanting to continue having that close relationship, because we think that having the relationship with our team and constant connection is very valuable. We're on calls several times a week as well, and make lots of trips over there. But That's really what started our next journey over to living back in California.
Yeah. So you're back in California. Parker Clay has grown and evolved so much since you started it. Talk to me about, I know that you make bags, you make other things, other items, and you use end of life leather from food animals. And like, it's very sustainable, which is so interesting to me as I was reading through your website. Talk a little bit about your products and all the different things that you do.
Yes. So we are a B Corp, and it's super important for us to not only have sustainability with people, but also the environment. We're rated top 5% in the world for our community impact. And really, when you're taking care of people, you're taking care of the environment. You know, a lot of, like you said, is end of life cattle is really what we use. And our products are just the tale of Ethiopia. Really, the stories are woven into our bags. There are many people that work on each bag that a customer would receive. Our inspiration is to really share stories with the leather, is to show as much full hide as we possibly, so like really clean designs that I usually like to say they're not trendy, but they're on trend. So that, you know, your daughter can pick it up years later and still like the leather. They can clean it. They can, you know, we have a lifetime guarantee. So it will age just beautifully. And I think that patinaed Ethiopian leather is just beautiful. So Ethiopia has the most beautiful landscape and environment. There's everything from eucalyptus forests to just beautiful fields with huts on it, the best coffee ever. And it is amazing just to sit down. They call it a coffee ceremony, and you sit down with people and you have 3 rounds of small cups of coffee, the best coffee in the world. And it's really storytelling. And we really want people that carry our bags to be proud of what they're carrying, to be like, oh, that's a beautiful bag. Well, thanks for saying that. But also, like, here's the story behind it. This is a little bit about some of the people that created it and what the impact that it's providing just by purchasing this bag.
Speaking of stories, this podcast is all about stories. And I know you've shared a few, including your own and other people, but I would love to hear a story or two of maybe somebody that has been empowered through the work that you're doing, helped through the work. And maybe even somebody, if there's a conversation that you were wearing one of the bags or had one of the bags and somebody asked you about it and you were able to share that story.
Yeah, often. I mean, it's really great to even see my daughter, who's 19, has gone up to people casually and not said that, you know, she's the daughter of the founder. And I love your bag. And then the customer will just tell her all about Parker Clay, and they're so proud to carry it. And, you know, we've seen that people have carried our bags into some hard circumstances in their lives. And it has been there through that, carrying all of their paperwork and all of their load. And I love to hear those stories that it's like been through hospital visits with them, or they are able to share the story with their daughter, and their daughter's really, you know, proud because, you know, just the younger age right now is so focused on giving back and caring for others. And it's really cool to see the older generation, who's all about the name brands, be more interested in, hey, this is doing good. This is not only a quality bag, but this is a brand I want to share with my children as well. So there's that. And then we have women in Ethiopia that there's so many little stories that have changed their lives. Like, they've been able to go on maternity leave, which was not a common thing, to have a secure job when you return. And then we've had women that have been able to get loans out to buy their first house right when they, you know, are pregnant. And so to have that extra bedroom, that's been beautiful. And then we have a recent story is a woman named Marta, who came from one of our programs, and her stitching was not the best. And so one of the team leaders was trying to figure out what was going on, and realized she was holding all the products really close to her face and she couldn't see them. And so our team leader was like, let's get her eyes checked. And they were able to take her to the doctor and saw that her eyes were incredibly bad, like basically blind. And that team leader was able to go to our leadership team and state the problem. We were able to get her glasses. And then we actually worked with Warby Parker to get her even cuter glasses and give them to her. And it completely changed her life. And she said that she could see, but for the first time, she feels seen. So it is a beautiful thing to see that our team in Ethiopia is noticing things with each other, and they are able to support each other and create that community and take care of each other, really. She was able to call that out and make a huge difference in, her production team's lives. So.
Yeah, our lives look so different if we feel supported and confident. Absolutely. And whatever little thing we're going through. That's what I love so much about what you're doing is you're building community, but a family where, you're walking alongside of people through whatever difficulties, whatever hardships they're going through. And also the joys, right? Like new babies and maternity leave and empowering women through that. And we here at One Girl Revolution, we always have a gift guide, a give back gift guide. So I can't wait to include Parker Clay and all of that, because we really encourage people here to use their purchases when they're buying gifts for people for Mother's Day or Father's Day or Christmas or birthdays, whatever, to look for those products exactly like Parker Clay, where you're empowering people through your purchases. You're not just going to whatever big corporation, you're actually making a difference and giving people opportunity through your purchases. One Girl Revolution is a nonprofit multimedia platform that is dedicated to highlighting the stories of world-changing women and girls. Help us continue our work empowering women and girls and telling their stories. Donate today at onegirlrevolution.com or on our Facebook page.
And our community is so incredibly important to us. We like to really share what the product has meant to the people making them. And so for each of our products, we have hours of empowerment, and we're calculating the total empowerment hours at our factory so far. So that's on our website as well. And each product states how many hours people have contributed to when they purchase the product. But, there's so many people right now trying to be sustainable and throwing out those words. And it's really important to dive into seeing really the details of how a company is providing. It's not like, oh, we're working in Ethiopia. And that is, it's really, are you creating a fair wage? Are you, providing anything else, to take care of the people that you are working with? And it makes a huge difference.
Are you treating your workers with dignity, which I think is so important, Like making sure that people have balance. I know balance can be a complicated word because people are like, oh, I don't know what that means. But no, making sure that people go home at a reasonable hour and, take care of their family, themselves first and their families. And you're really doing that. And what an example that you and Parker Clay are in the world. And that was a big part of why I wanted to have you on the podcast. So you've grown and evolved so much. Parker Clay has grown and evolved. I know you have personally too, and Ian has, but where do you hope that Parker Clay goes from here 5 or 10 years down the line? And this is a podcast all about dreams. So dream big wherever you hope to see it go.
Yeah, I mean, we're the largest exporter of finished leather goods in Ethiopia right now, which blows my mind. But we would like to continue providing more jobs to women and just the community in Ethiopia. And so, if we can get up to 1 million empowerment and people empowered in Ethiopia to end really prostitution and the need for people to leave Ethiopia and be trafficked based off of economic reasons. I mean, that would be the dream for me. I would, love to see our bags continue to be shared and the story being told here in the US and around the world in order to create other companies to do something similar, to really care about the employees. And a lot of times it is a challenge because you can't have the control over that impact as much if you don't own your own factory. And we're, thankful to be able to do that. But to grow our factory in the most sustainable way, but to put that in the hands of the Ethiopians as well, to be able to know what is needed. And we're excited that this year we have launched a community fundraising round. So we are able to have our community join in and be co-owners in Parker Clay. So at a very low minimum of $500. And so our community is already the one that is able to create the impact by purchasing bags. But how cool is it to like be an owner in that, to know like you directly are participating in the growth of Parker Clay and the growth of our impact as well.
Yeah, well, I will post the link to that crowdfunding effort so people can get involved. What else can people do to support your work? Of course, they can do that. They can buy a bag, they can share, follow on social media. How are all the ways that people can get involved in what you're doing?
Yeah, those are definitely a lot of the ways. I think just telling your friends about it, sharing about Parker Clay, of course, buying a bag. There's men's products, women's products, accessories, something for every occasion, really. And I would say beyond that is just reading of the importance of getting involved. And there's so many ways to get involved, whether that's just, sharing the link or reading up on why it's important to be a B Corp and creating that impact in the purchases we make and being aware of what we buy and making sure it is helpful and not harmful.
Brittany, what is the root? You're just such a beautiful, fascinating person to me, and I love everything that you're doing with Parker Clay. But if you could get to the very root of why you do what you do, or why you care so much about these women, about Ethiopia, I know that your children are a part of that. I know that your experiences are over there are a piece of that. But what is at the very root of what drives you to care?
I would say a lot of it started on, what if that was me as a mom? What if I was in that situation? And we named the company Parker Clay because when we just had two boys and we were looking at adopting, what if that was Parker or Clay? Like, what if they were in that situation? Would someone come for them? Would someone be taking care of them? Would they have those, that community around them? So that really drives Ian and I the most of, just having that empathy of what if we were in that situation.
Well, you're empowering so many people through your life and through your work. And I can't wait to see Parker Clay continue to grow and evolve. And I can't wait to be a part of it because like I shared with you before we started recording, I want One Girl Revolution to support everything that you have going on. So I will be sure to put the links to your website and social media. And I encourage everybody who's listening to follow what you're doing and share. I always say that the free and easy way to spread these efforts are through social media. If you see a bag or you see an item that you like, share it on social media and encourage other people to support the work of Parker Clay. But before I let you go, Brittany, I always end this podcast on 2 questions. So I'll start with the first one. You are a one girl revolution in my life now that I've gotten to know you, and everybody who's listening, they got to hear your incredible story. But who's a one girl revolution in your life? Who's a woman or girl that's inspired you?
I'd go back to say my daughter, Selah. She's really completely changed my life because we have gone through the struggle together in many aspects, and she's lived it. I've watched her live with it and kind of gone through it with her, of going through all the changes of being my first adopted daughter and all the medical issues. Each one of those very hard situations has completely changed my life, as well as hers. And it's really turned me into the person I am today, going through those things. And that's a wonderful thing. I think some of the challenges are also what makes your life great. And so, yeah, I would say her. She's so brave and has such a giving heart and so much love to give, and has just gone through so much. So
Well, I can't wait to continue to hear all the stories about her and follow. And hopefully at some point I get to meet you all in person.
Yeah, for sure.
But so this podcast is all about women's voices and their stories. And so I'll end on this. If you could leave women and girls around the world with one message, what would it be?
I would say that mistakes or, learnings are really part of the process, that we need to be gentle with ourselves. Like, we need to realize that's getting us to the next place in our lives, and it builds in a beautiful way. And so not to be so hard on yourself with, a current situation, a current mistake. We have a phrase at Parker Clay: you win or you learn. And I really think all of these learnings really turn out to be something beautiful if we just keep taking the next step and seeing it where it's going to take us.
Well, you are such a great example of that, Brittany. And I'm so grateful to you for all the incredible work that you do. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. And thank you for everything that you do in the world. Please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at One Girl Revo. That's the number one girl REVO. And you can find more information on One Girl Revolution at onegirlrevolution.com. That's the number one girlrevolution.com.